Welcome to Week Gen C.
Focused on young adults in the Northwest
And their careers in a post-pandemic world.
Ever wonder how they go from the classroom into your chosen career?
We chat with local STAR employees to find out how they got where they are today.
And what they've learnt along the way.
So, can I just first ask you to introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about what you do?
Yep, I'm Aimear Lynch, and at the minute over the last year I started my own business called My Pet Lamb. It's mypetlamb.com, and it's a sustainable and eco-friendly children's wear brand made from natural materials, and a portion of it is handmade as well. So
Lovely. What did you work at before you started your own business?
before I started My Pet Lamb, I was working for a jewelry company as buyer merchandiser for 10 years. So I was involved in the buy-in process and merchandising the product in store and online as well. So that I kind of spent the last 10 years.
So, were you sourcing the product, the materials?
Yeah, well, we were going on buy-in trips twice a year. So every 6 months we would go on the buy-in trips and pick the product that we were going to sell in the stores.
Right. And how does that differ from now when obviously you're using sustainable and eco-friendly materials? I'm sure there's a big difference.
There is a huge difference, yeah. And it's kind of part of the reason why I decided to start my own business was because we were flying out to the Far East twice a year, and we were sourcing some product that was inevitably going to end up in landfill, like some of the costume pieces particularly. And it just kind of was thinking, do we necessarily need to buy product from the Far East, ship it across the globe, and then for it inevitably to end up in landfill with usually quite difficult materials to recycle?
Yes.
So the process is entirely different now, particularly with the handmade collection, because obviously it's a lot more locally sourced. The time scale is a little bit different as well. But when you consider the impact that it has being locally made and handmade in a slow fashion using really high quality materials, like the lead time isn't as huge when you consider that some of the stuff coming from the Far East, although the cost price would be a lot cheaper, that will come at an expense, either the material that's being used or the processes of manufacturing. To get it at such a cheap price, there's a cost somewhere else. You're either paying the labor force really little, or you're mass producing it and making it from kind of manufactured super cheap materials that are usually from petrochemical processes as well. And then ultimately more difficult to recycle or reuse later on at the end of the life cycle as well. Whereas the materials I'm using, because they're 100% natural wool or 100% organic cotton, the recycling or reusing process is a lot more easy. Like wool will naturally degrade over time.
Okay. What would you say to people who would argue that it's too expensive to purchase one of your products and they would prefer to continue to buy fast fashion?
I suppose that's a big thing as well, because fast fashion is affordable for a lot of people. And then that's where with My Pet Lamb we kind of have a mixture of handmade product and also product that's machine knit, but using the same natural materials, so that the better option doesn't necessarily always have to mean the more expensive option, because the price point of our products are really quite reasonable. And then as you go into the more slow labor intensive items, then the value added there is the fact that it is handmade and someone has poured hours of time making that, and that's very valuable to some people. But also there's options where it's a reasonable, affordable option, but better than artificial mass produced, shipped across the globe options.
Yeah, and seeing that this is a very laborious process, I'm assuming this is not a one-woman show. Do you have a team around you?
Yeah, I have a few grannies, expert skills from some people in their 60s, 70s, 80s helping out. So it's incredible that part of the process as well, to work with people that you wouldn't normally meet within the supply chain process. I mean, there's so much value to people that are maybe traditionally kind of not thought of as integral to the buying process. You know, women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, you don't encounter many of them, especially if you're going to Hong Kong at trade fairs. It's usually men, really rich men in their 40s, 50s, picking a lot of products that are ultimately for women. So
yeah,
it's interesting and it's fabulous to work with them as well. Yeah, and I've got so much value from them and learned so much already, and it's just,
and the fact that they're local as well.
Yeah,
very rewarding. And am I right in saying currently you're just making clothes for children?
No, we have an adult range as well. We have ladies and men's knitwear as well.
Oh, very good.
Because we started off with the children's, and then, you know, just naturally the inquiries came through saying, oh, would you do that in an adult size? And then it's lovely, like there's a big trend in children's wear of mini me, the mums and kids, you know, they like to kind of match, so we have those kind of options as well.
And advertising obviously is very important. How would you, what would you say is the best way for you to advertise your business?
Well, at the minute, most of our kind of marketing is through social media. You know, it's a massive focus on Instagram and Facebook, really, and trying to get that kind of engagement and get a bit of a following. And then once we kind of have sold to a few local people, like already I'm seeing that word of mouth is still really valuable. You know, a lot of people like have told their friends, and then they have been referred onto the website, and then they've bought. So although marketing is focused on social, I think at the minute so far, quite a bit of it has been word of mouth and kind of people having conversations too. So it was an interesting and kind of unexpected strategy so far that I've seen.
Yeah, and what were the best things about buying as a career, and what were the most challenging things?
Buying is a great career. It's so interesting, especially if you're in buying, you know, you can buy in a multitude of different industries, you know, like catering, food, consumer goods, construction. I was in the lovely field of jewelry buying, so it was a big interest of mine. I come from a architecture and sustainable design background, so it was kind of aesthetically, I loved kind of beautiful things and making them look really nice as well. So it was really rewarding that way, because it kind of, I was using my courses that I had studied in terms of design, and then there was elements within the role of with merchandising. You were kind of putting together collections and seeing how they would work together and what would sell and what would your hero products. So it was kind of strategizing and working out how to merchandise everything as well. So I just really enjoyed that part of it. I love to, although, you know, going to the Far East doesn't make so much sense in terms of sustainability, it was amazing to go on those buying trips. And the nature of where I worked for the last 10 years, it was a kind of small to medium business. So I was working in head office, and over the 10 years, there were like different waves of redundancies and things. So when those happened and I stayed on, some roles kind of merged together. So, and sometimes, you know, in the nature of a business, you might get pulled from what you normally do day to day and say, look, we have this happening. Can you come and help with the marketing side of things, or store revamps and things like that? So because I had that history in architecture, so I loved, they did a whole sweep of store refits. So I just naturally was really interested in that. So it was great to be involved in that kind of
and kind of learn off the job.
Yeah, there was so much different facets that you could get involved with. So I suppose it was really great, and such a steep learning curve, and a really great place to learn all those things, because the size of the business lended itself to that, but also they were so flexible about, like, if you had an interest, they said, yeah, jump in and get your hands dirty, and there's no reason why you can't help. So it was great, because it's like you learn so much in situ, when you're in a business, and you can, like, practical learning, stuff on the job that you wouldn't necessarily always get. So there's a lot of value in kind of jumping in somewhere and trying stuff out as well as valuable. Yeah.
And I suppose that's good to hear from a consumer's point of view, because if they were to buy from your brand, then they would know that they're contributing to that sort of environment where local people are benefiting in terms of their careers. And were you always interested in art and design in school, or how did you get involved in that at the beginning?
I've always kind of had a huge interest in art and design, and just loved anything arty or creative. Like even when I was a little girl, I used to have dolls and I would make them like little outfits and things. Like my mum would help me sew. So
Class.
I've always loved that. And then as a child, when we were all young, we lived in Africa for a few years, just because dad was in engineering. So we moved out to Nigeria for a few years. And there was kind of not so much to do, I suppose, at times. So a lot of it was arts based, and we got all our clothes made by this local lady, and it just was a real, like, that experience that different culture just sparked something in me that I just thought, God, this is amazing, and there's so much more out there to learn. So I've always been interested in arts and creativity and everything.
That's amazing you say that. Actually, my friend, she's in Nigeria this year. She's living in Algeria.
No.
Abuja, and she actually has gotten clothes made in Abuja, and she was showing us beautiful designs.
So like, again, the women in Nigeria, they're so incredibly talented, super skilled at what they do. They can make anything. Like, I remember stopping off at the side of the road, and there were a woman making the most beautiful, colorful jewelry, and it was incredible to see the craft and the skill. And I suppose probably from then you just kind of think, when people can do this and make this with their own hands and their own minds, like, you would pay for that. Like, I would pay for something unique and bespoke and something so creative and well crafted than maybe something that's just mass produced purely for profit.
It's more personal.
Exactly.
And is it hard working for yourself, or do you like it?
There's pros and cons. Like, it's definitely challenging at times, but the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. I mean, with anything, it's hard work. All the responsibility lies on yourself. Whereas, in a business, you have someone that you can bounce things off, ask what their opinion is. Whereas when you're running your own business, it's largely on you. And you're totally responsible. So it's a steep learning curve, but it's what I've always wanted. Well, not always, but for the last 10 years, it's been at the back of my mind, and it's building the nerve, I suppose, and thinking, right, am I going to ever try this? It's a bit of a dream. Is it going to work? And then I suppose with COVID and everything too, it kind of was the perfect timing to just go, look, if I don't try it now, I'll never do it. And I'm really glad that I have.
And before we go, do you have any advice that you would want to give anybody who's interested in fashion and maybe wants to start their own business?
Suppose part of me would just say go for it. Like I was saying about that small to medium-sized business, I think it would be really invaluable to even contact people you admire or brands that you like, and just, like, you never know where one conversation could lead, and get experience from places, because like I have a good background in buying and merchandising and marketing, but you don't know absolutely everything. So
Yeah.
going somewhere that you could get practical experience before you start would be really helpful in just seeing, right, what is the realistic day-to-day running of a business, and what would I have to do, and what does it look like. And the best way, I think, or the best way I've found, is by learning on the job. So if you could get in touch with someone that you know or that inspires you, then and get a bit of experience, even if it's going to their workshop or studio for a day and just having that conversation, it would be really good. Yeah, that's about it.
So you don't have to go to Abuja or anything to get the
Not necessarily.
experience.
You can Google a lot now.
Yeah, you can get it locally. Well, thank you so much for talking to
No
me
problem.
today. That was really interesting, and it was lovely to meet you.
You too. Thanks so much.
Bye, Aimear.
Bye.